We also get ranked by outside groups. This report came out last Friday. It actually goes to all the lobbyists in the state. They survey them and they say, what's the most effective association in lobbying in Richmond? And they vote on the associations. There are about 100 associations in the state. And I'm proud to tell you today, we just publicized this, that the South's top government affairs firms and lobbyist firms, the Virginia Chamber Association was ranked as the #1 association in lobbying in Virginia in terms of effectiveness. So we represent you. We're your voice in Richmond. Our membership continues to grow. This demonstrates about 1 dot for every 25 members. Our membership now is about 1 out of 10 in the Commonwealth of Virginia. There are about 237,000 businesses in Virginia that are non-farm businesses. So with our association, our local chambers, we can really be your voice and activate your voice to the governor's office, speak to members of the House and the Senate, as well as those in Richmond. I'm going to tell you, Maurice had it exactly right. How is Virginia doing? Well, with their emphasis on job growth and job creation, we've been able to just begin to see some growth. But I'm going to share with you the report that shocked us all was our economic growth was 48 and close to 1%. And Maurice, as we track 2011, 2012, and 2013, just beginning with the 2014, the implementation of your strategies, we've been less than the national average in terms of state job growth. So what are the challenges? Already well articulated for you, and this governor and cabinet secretary and others have it well in focused, along with members of the General Assembly. Competition from other states. Believe me, I interact, and Maurice, we interact with other state leadership. They want to become like Virginia. Some of them are actually becoming right-to-work states now. And we also are challenged by the federal spending projections that he talked about. Our small businesses are still trying to figure out health care reform, and our traditional industries are still in transition in Southern Virginia and Southwest Virginia. And we'll talk October 6th about workforce. It's a huge challenge for us. There are probably 160,000 jobs we could fill today in Virginia and even increase our employment if we aligned education and workforce properly in the Commonwealth. And we'll talk more about that. So what's the answer for Virginia? Well, I would share with you that a lot of our challenges in economic growth are really from Washington. We have very pro-business legislators in both sides of the aisle in Richmond. We have very pro-business office in the governor's office. Most of our challenges really in business today are coming from across the Potomac. And we're looking for an energy policy and a pro-growth policy and trade that can help us from Washington. We're kind of hoping that those in Washington will get past this next election in 2016 and stop moving from crisis to crisis in leadership and start providing a real jobs and growth opportunity agenda for America. That's the best thing to help our nation. And attacking some of these challenges that are here, transportation investment so desperately needed, fixing our immigration challenges, reducing the burdens of regulation, and helping implementation and reform with the healthcare law, and doing some real tax reform to help corporate America, and helping take the lead with closing the skills gap. That's a pro-growth agenda for Washington, and that done on a bipartisan basis will do more to lift this nation's economy and to lift the Commonwealth's economy. We should be experiencing 3% and 4% growth as a nation, not stagnating as we have been. So our program for Virginia is to work with this governor and the General Assembly on implementing Blueprint. We had about 7,000 businesses actually fill out surveys in advance of the governor's election after 30 community meetings and 600 organizations endorsing Blueprint. Go to vachamber.com. You'll see the details of our Blueprint Virginia initiative. Today we'll be talking about transportation and infrastructure and business climate, but there's a lot there on other issues that face us as well. It's a unified document from the business community, a long-term economic plan, and it's a plan that's nonpartisan. I want to thank the governor and this secretary for working with us on Blueprint. Paul Kuntz is the CEO of Dominion Virginia Power. He chaired our steering committee. We presented this, Mr. Secretary, 2 weeks after he was elected. I believe you are aware of that, and we've been pleased with the implementation. And frankly, I believe the steps taken by this administration and the record-breaking capital announcements, you have over $7 billion announced in 18 months, that's a record, because they're really following the business community's goals and objectives of focusing on issues important to the business community here. I'm going to dive just briefly into the study and then turn it over to this panel of experts that really understand the institutions and the infrastructure. The study was done for the purposes, for the first time, of really benchmarking the economic impact of exports to the Commonwealth of Virginia and using the data from Brookings Institute. I'll share with you a quick summary, but they've done this for 28 metro areas already. This is something that other states and metro areas are focused on, and we wanted to get on this as fast as possible. Virginia's exporting firms have been interviewed, and we also are going to show you some tax revenue implications from exports as well. So the bottom line is you got to go global in order to grow. As the Secretary said, actually 95% of the population lives outside of the United States. We want to sell to those people, but the actual growth projections from 2015 to 2020, according to the study, is 81% of the global growth will take place outside the United States. We want our businesses to ship to those people. We need the right federal regulations, but we need the right programs here in Virginia, and we have a partnership underway that I think is second to none. For those of you in the room who are my friends in economic development, I know, having been Secretary of Commerce and in local government for 6 years, we celebrate large new businesses coming to Virginia, but as the Secretary said, this is a really interesting fact. Most of the job creation in the world is going to come from expanding existing businesses, and this is just a demonstration from 1992 to 2008. The firm relocation is actually getting smaller and smaller, and in fact, there's been a 50% decline in business attraction of companies investing over $1 million and expanding. So really the focus has to be on existing industry for large growth in the future. So how's Virginia doing with exports? Again, the summary is in your handout, but we've seen about a 56% increase from 2003 to 2014. And that increase and our share of Virginia economic growth in exports is growing significantly. I think it's also interesting to know that while the average growth in Virginia has been a little less than 1%, the export growth from the recession through 2014 has actually grown about 2.5 times higher. It's also interesting to look at the nation. The states generally have about 66% in goods and 34% in services. Virginia is almost even, and this bodes well for us because those that are actually employed in the service sector, for every $1 billion in exports of services, it's about 7,000 jobs to about 5,000 in goods. But we appreciate our friends in manufacturing, those who are here that are in manufacturing. They dominate our Virginia export sector in terms of their pay as well as in terms of their percentage of exports. And I also continue to support export growth from 2008 and 2014 in billions. So the charts really say it all. But we are seeing growth in finance and insurance and general business services and in consulting and information technology. Those are the hot spots that the study will tell you. It's also interesting to look at Virginia in terms of its percentage of reliance on trade. Our state domestic product, 6% is on exports alone. And Dr. Roy Pearson is here. He helped with this study. Thank you, Roy. Along with the Brookings Institute data and McDermott and Dr. Pearson, you know, from William & Mary's Business School, determining that about $2 billion in 2014 in tax-related revenue. Very important to be able to have this sort of reliability. And you heard the Secretary say that about 3.8 million people working today. Well, for export goods and services, about 320,000, almost 321,000 are related to those jobs are related to those exports. So those jobs pay higher, $58,000 on average. So for all the obvious reasons, we want to focus on trade. We want to raise the importance of this in your communities and in your region and through the chambers of commerce, and we want to begin to celebrate our successes. This won't surprise you in terms of 60% of the exports come from the 3 most populated regions, and it shows you the percentage in the Hampton Roads, Northern Virginia, Richmond region. What may surprise you is these top 10 areas depend upon trade jobs in a double-digit fashion. In Lynchburg, it's over 11% of their region. In Stanton, it's over 14% of their state regional product. So it means more to their regions in the smaller regions and the rural regions of Virginia. So that's why it's critical for job growth. So what's the response from the state government? What's the response from the state chamber? What should we do about this? Well, we think it's important that we recognize that we are competing with other areas in the country. In fact, the Brookings folks, and this is just a shot of the cover of their 16 lessons learned for global trade. They've done 28 studies for metro areas that are already looking at this. And the themes are similar for Virginia. The most important firms you have are the ones you have to grow are the ones you already have. We also want to focus on those middle market firms. We want to focus on international trade is tied to foreign direct investment. So you'll hear today from companies that have foreign direct investment manufacturing here, using our ports to trade. Very, very important that we recognize this. And also Virginia is well positioned at the forefront. The highlights demonstrate that we have a long-standing program through the Virginia Economic Development Partnership with the Valet program, focused on middle firms, our VITAL initiative, which will, we think, create about 14,000 jobs in the next 5 years. And we think there are about 6,500 middle market companies in Virginia today not exporting that could be a great prospect base for us to grow those export jobs. We've heard from the companies the value of this particular initiative, and these are just some testimonials from what I've seen the state of Virginia is doing. It's head and shoulders above other states. Another quote Virginia's doing on exports is incredible. The state does have an important role to play. And then working through the Valet program, which is what we want our companies to do, they've been able to get their products and services in front of a lot of people. Believe me, it's a program that works. So what's the conclusion? Virginia's economy is increasingly tied to exports. It's critical that Virginia helps companies develop new clients in foreign markets. And we think going global is absolutely critical to the future of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we think we have a strong platform using our existing programs and investing in those programs in the future. We're going to be advocating for that investment. We hope you'll be advocating for that investment because we think international trade is critical to our economy. So our Chamber Foundation has a Center for Trade. This is our first event out of our Chamber Foundation. And our Center for Trade is hosting this with our VITAL partners. And we think it's important for those of you in this room who may be in the professional service industry. You may have clients whose products could be purchased overseas. They may have a service that could be purchased overseas. I want you to be thinking that way. Don't be thinking that I'm in the finance industry or I'm in the legal industry and I'm not going to have my services overseas. Be thinking about who your clients are. Their products might be able to be utilized overseas. Just a simple phone call to our offices or the local chamber offices, we can profile those companies and help them evaluate whether they can find a market for their product overseas. That's the action item here, is to grow this program because we think we can grow companies, markets overseas, and grow more employment. Believe me, working together, that'll make your business more prosperous, it'll make their business more prosperous, and it'll make Virginia more prosperous.